Welcome to the story. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and support me. The night was unusually quiet, even for someone like Wanda Maximoff, whose life had long since taken a turn into the strange and unpredictable. The hum of her magic simmered beneath her skin, always present, always reminding her that chaos could erupt at any moment. But tonight, it was different. The energy was off. She could feel the crackle in the air, an almost imperceptible shift in reality itself. Wanda stood on the balcony of her modest apartment, staring into the night sky, eyes narrowed as she scanned for the source of the disturbance. It wasn't just the usual turbulence in the world that came with being one of its most powerful beings. No, this was different, darker, more insidious. Her fingers twitched, the red tendrils of her chaos, magic curling around her hands, as if responding to an invisible pull. Suddenly, the sky rippled, not a physical ripple, like a stone tossed into a pond, but a shimmer, as if the very fabric of reality had been disturbed. Wanda's breath hitched. She'd seen this before, only in rare, extreme moments when dimensions were crossed, when worlds collided, but this was larger than anything she had ever felt. Before she could act, a tear in the sky split open, jagged and unnatural. From within, a cold, otherworldly wind howled through the tear, carrying with it an aura that made Wanda's skin crawl. And then they appeared, figures cloaked in shadow, their forms shifting and warping as they stepped into her world. Dimensional invaders. Her eyes flashed with crimson as she prepared for battle, magic surging through her veins. But even as she drew on her power, she felt a tug deep within her. Something was wrong. These invaders weren't just after Earth or its people. They wanted her, specifically her magic. Before Wanda could launch an attack, a figure unbelievably out of place burst onto the scene, loud and brash, sword in hand. Well, what do we have here? Deadpool's voice rang out casual and mocking as he twirled his sword with the precision of someone who had done this 1,000 times before. Did somebody call for a professional? He was clearly talking to no one in particular. Wanda sighed, recognizing the familiar red and black clad mercenary, though she hadn't expected him to appear least of all now. Deadpool, or Wade Wilson, as he was also known, not that anyone cared to call him that, waltzed toward the invaders with a swagger that suggested he didn't truly have a care in the world. Look, guys, I was just out for a chimichanga run, but since you rather rudely interrupted my dinner plans, he whipped out his twin katanas and slashed through the nearest creature with a single stroke. I guess I'll settle for some ass-kicking instead. Wanda didn't have time to process how Deadpool had gotten involved, but she knew one thing for certain: these invaders were here for her, and she couldn't let them succeed. With a flick of her wrist, red magic erupted from her hands, slamming into the invaders with enough force to send them flying. She needed to focus. She could deal with Deadpool's antics later. As the invaders regrouped, they seemed to shimmer and shift, adjusting to the magic in the air. Wanda could feel the way they reacted to her power, like predators honing in on their prey. Deadpool, ever the chaos agent, leaped in front of her, blocking another wave of invaders with his body. Hey, Red, he called back over his shoulder. These guys don't look too friendly. Care to fill me in on what the hell is going on? Wanda's eyes never left the invaders as she replied, her voice tight. They rest from another dimension, and they here for my magic. Deadpool let out a low whistle. Boo, magic thieves. I hate those. They were like pickpockets, but worse. He grinned beneath his mask, lunging forward to slice through another foe. No worries, though. I've got your back. I will handle the ugly ones. You handle whatever it is you do. Despite herself, Wanda couldn't help but be slightly amused. Even in the face of a multidimensional invasion, Deadpool was Deadpool. Unpredictable, reckless, but somehow always managing to be in the right place at the right time. The battle intensified. Wanda's magic crackled in the air, brilliant red streaks of energy weaving between the invaders and sending them scattering. But for everyone they took down, more seemed to spill through the dimensional tier. The portal was growing, widening by the second, and with it the pull on her magic became more intense. Wanda could feel it, an insidious force reaching out from the other side, drawing on her power. Wanda, we need to close that portal, she shouted to herself, voice tight with strain. Working on it, Deadpool replied, slicing through another creature, as if he had a personal vendetta against them. I am a little busy with, saving your ass. But Wanda could sense the portal, his pull deepening. These creatures weren't just mindless invaders. They were after something specific. They were after her chaos magic, and whoever was orchestrating this attack wasn't just some low-level dimensional being. No, this was something far bigger, far more dangerous. In a moment of clarity, Wanda realized what she had to do. She reached out with her magic, pulling at the edges of the portal, trying to force it closed. But as soon as she touched the rift, she felt a presence on the other side. A mind ancient and vast, filled with malice. It was the dimensional overlord, and he wasn't just after her power. He wanted to use it to collapse the barriers between dimensions to merge them into one chaotic realm where he would reign supreme. She recoiled, her magic sparking uncontrollably as the force of the overlord's sad presence pressed down on her. Deadpool. She called out, panic creeping into her voice for the first time. We need to go now. Without hesitation, Deadpool was at her side, grabbing her arm. Lead the way. Red, I am not exactly a fan of whatever the hell that thing is. With a final burst of energy, Wanda opened a portal of her own, a bright red tear in space that led away from the invasion, away from the dimensional chaos that threatened to engulf them. Together, she and Deadpool leapt through the portal, vanishing from the battlefield just as another wave of invaders poured through the rift. They emerged in a different place, no longer on Earth, but in a dimension that seemed to shift and warp around them. The sky was an ever-changing swirl of colors, the ground beneath their feet constantly shifting between solid and liquid. Wanda stumbled, her head spinning from the sudden shift in reality. Whoa, Deadpool muttered, looking around with wide eyes. Did we just fall into a Salvador Dali painting? Wanda ignored him, her mind racing. They were safe for now, but she could feel the Overlord's presence lurking just beyond the veil of reality. He was still hunting her, still trying to draw her magic into his dimensional nexus. They didn't have much time. We in one of the dimensional rifts, Wanda said, steadying herself. It's unstable here, but it should give us some time to figure out a plan. Deadpool blinked. A plan? I thought we were just winging it. He gestured to the chaotic landscape around them. Isn't true that your thing, chaos magic and all that? Wanda shot him a look. This isn't a game, Wade. The Overlord wants to merge all dimensions into one. If he gets control of my magic, he'll be able to collapse reality itself. Deadpool stared at her for a moment, then shrugged. Sounds like a bad day for everyone. Exactly, Wanda replied, her expression grim. We need to find a way to stop him. Deadpool tapped his chin thoughtfully. Okay, so Big Bad Overlord wants to smoosh all the dimensions together and make a super dimension. We can't let that happen because, well, I like my dimension just fine. He glanced at Wanda. Any ideas on how we stop a guy who can bend reality? Wanda hesitated. She had a few ideas, but none of them were without risk. The Overlord was powerful, more powerful than anything she had ever faced. But there was one thing she knew for certain. If they didn't stop him, there wouldn't be any dimensions left to protect. We need to get to the dimensional nexus, Wanda said finally. It's on the center of his power, where all the dimensions converge. If we can disrupt his control there, we might be able to stop him. Deadpool grinned. Now you were talking a big bad boss fight at the end of the universe? Count me in. Wanda gave him a weary smile. Just try not to get yourself killed. Deadpool laughed, twirling his katanas. Please, Red. Ivy died more times than I can count. What's one more? Wanda felt the weight of Deadpool's words lingering in the strange, fluctuating air around them. He was cavalier about death, but she knew this was different. If the Overlord succeeded, there wouldn't be another chance. No healing factor, no magic, no coming back. Everything would be lost. She took a breath and steadied herself. The ground beneath her shifted, softening into a gelatinous surface before hardening again. Her fingers worked with magic, the crimson tendrils pulsing in rhythm with the energy of the dimensional rift. The instability of the place worked in their favor, buying them time to think, but not much. The Overlord was relentless, and she could feel his presence, stalking her across the multiverse. We need to move, she said, her voice firm. And now, the longer we stay here, the more likely he'll find us. Deadpool glanced around, still seemingly unfazed by the surreal landscape. So how do we find this nexus place? Do we follow the yellow brick road? Wanda reached out with her senses, searching for the faintest pull of energy that would lead them to the heart of the nexus. It was subtle, but they're like a distant hum resonating in the fabric of reality. She nodded in the direction of the pull that way, but be careful. The dimensions will get more dangerous the closer we get. Deadpool grinned, his mask creasing with exaggerated enthusiasm. Danger is my middle name? Well, technically it's a Winston, but you get the idea. They set off, the ground beneath their feet shifting unpredictably with each step. Wanda could feel the dimensional currents growing stronger, warping reality in ways that tested her concentration. The sky above them twisted in on itself, turning from a deep shade of blue to a sickly green, while the horizon bent at impossible angles. It wasn't long before the first wave of resistance appeared. Strange ethereal creatures rose from the swirling ground, their forms constantly shifting between solid and intangible. They moved with an eerie fluidity, eyes glowing with the same malevolent energy she had felt from the Overlord. Without a word, Wanda raised her hand and a wave of red magic surged from her fingertips, crashing into the creatures and dissolving them into mist. Deadpool leaped into the fray beside her, his katanas flashing in the distorted light as he cut down anything that came too close. Is it just me? Deadpool called out between swings, or are these guys getting uglier with every dimension? They were getting stronger the closer we get to the Nexus. Wanda replied, her magic flaring as she blasted another creature into oblivion. They were tied to the overlords that power. Well, that's just fantastic. Deadpool muttered, stabbing one creature through the chest before decapitating another, as if this day couldn't get any weirder. They fought their way through the wave of creatures, pushing forward with every step. Wanda could feel the strain of using her magic in this twisted dimension, the energy around her reacting unpredictably to her power. But she pressed on, knowing that there was no other choice. The fate of every dimension depended on their success. Finally, the creatures fell back, retreating into the shifting landscape as if they had been called away. Wanda let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding, her magic dimming as she lowered her hand. Deadpool wiped his swords on his suit, giving her a sidelong glance. So, what's the next step in this magical mystery tour? Wanda didn't answer immediately. She could feel the Nexus growing closer, the pull of its energy becoming more insistent. But with it came a growing sense of dread. The Overlord was waiting for that. She knew it, and whatever trap he had laid would be far worse than anything they had faced so far. We keep moving, she said finally. We're almost there. Deadpool shrugged. Lead the way. Red! They continued forward, the landscape growing more erratic with each passing moment. Time itself seemed to bend and stretch, the sun dipping below the horizon only to rise again moments later. At one point they found themselves walking through a forest of twisted crystalline trees, only for the trees to dissolve into sand as they passed. It was disorienting, even for Wanda, whose powers often defied the natural laws of the universe. As they walked, she could feel Deadpool's gaze on her, his usual banter notably absent. She glanced over at him, raising an eyebrow. What? He shrugged, spinning one of his swords absent-mindedly, just wondering, what's all going on in that head of yours? You look like you were about to walk into your own funeral. Wanda frowned. It's nothing. Deadpool stopped walking and turned to face her, crossing his arm. Oh, come on, Dante, give me that. I might be a wise that I can tell when someone sent on edge spin. She hesitated, then sighed. I don't know if I can stop it. Deadpool, his eyes narrowed behind his mask, the jovial tone fading from his voice. Why not? You're like one of the most powerful people in the universe, right? You got this. It's not that simple, Wanda said quietly, the Overlord. He's sent different. He's not just another villain looking for power. He's an agent. He understands the dimensions in ways that I don't tie to, but he's been preparing for this for a long time. Deadpool tilted his head. So what, you were just gonna give up? Wanda shook her head, her expression hardening. I'll fight him, but there's some a part of me that knows I might not win. Deadpool was silent for a moment. Then he reached out and tapped her on the shoulder with the flat of his sword. Hey, listen, I've been around for a while and I've seen my fair share of apocalyptic bad guys, and you know what? They all have one thing in common. What's that? They underestimate people like us. Wanda gave him a questioning look. People like us. Yeah, Deadpool said with a grin. The ones who don't play by the rule. The ones who don't give a crap about how things are supposed to go. We make our own rules, and that's why we're gonna kick this Overlord. Say. Wanda couldn't tell, but smile, a small spark of hope flickering to life inside her. Deadpool was reckless, annoying, and often infuriating, but he was right about one thing. They didn't play by the rules. And maybe, just maybe, that would be enough. Before she could respond, the ground beneath them trembled, and the air crackled with energy. Wanda's head snapped up, her eyes widening as she felt the surge of power washing over them. The Nexus was closer than she had anticipated. We are here, she said, her voice tense. The Nexus. Deadpool looked around, his swords at the ready. Well, where is it? "I don't you see any giant glowing X marks the spot?" Wanda didn't answer. She could feel it, the pull of the Overlord's said power growing stronger with every passing second. The dimensional nexus wasn't a place, it was a convergence of realities, a point where all dimensions met and overlapped. And it was here, just beyond the veil of their current reality. She raised her hands, her magic flaring to life, as she reached out with her mind searching for the breach that would lead them to the nexus. The air shimmered in response, rippling like water as the fabric of reality began to unravel before them. And then the tear appeared, a jagged rift in the air, pulsing with an unnatural light. On the other side, Wanda could see the swirling chaos of the dimensional nexus, a place where time, space, and reality itself had no meaning. It was beautiful and terrifying all at once. Deadpool whistled. Well, that sounded not ominous at all. Wanda took a deep breath, steeling herself for what was to come. "This is it. Once we cross through, there's no turning back." Deadpool shrugged. Never was one for turning back anyway. He gave her a grin. "Let's go kick some dimensional overlord ass." With that, he stepped through the rift, disappearing into the swirling chaos beyond. Wanda hesitated for only a moment before following him, the pull of the nexus drawing her in like a magnet. As soon as she stepped through, she was hit with a wave of disorientation. The nexus was unlike anything she had ever experienced, a place where reality twisted and warped in ways that defied comprehension. The ground beneath her feet shifted constantly, and the sky above was a kaleidoscope of colors, ever-changing and impossible to focus on. In the center of it all stood the Overlord. He was a towering figure, his form constantly shifting between dimensions, making it difficult to focus on him. His eyes glowed with a malevolent light, and the air around him crackled with energy. "You are too late, Scarlet Witch." The Overlord's sad voice echoed through the nexus, deep and resonant, as if coming from every direction at once. "The convergence is already underway soon. All dimensions will be one, and I will be their master." Wanda's heart raced, but she didn't back down. She raised her hands, her magic swirling around her in a protective barrier. "I want to let you destroy everything." The Overlord laughed, the sound chilling and human. "You cannot stop what has already begun. Your magic is but a drop in the ocean of chaos." Deadpool, standing beside Wanda, with his katanas drawn, tilted his head. "Okay, first off, way to be a cliche, dude. Second, you haven't true met us yet." The Overlord's gaze shifted to Deadpool, his expression unreadable. "You are nothing, a speck of dust in the grand scheme of the multiverse." Deadpool grinned, "A speck that's not about to get up in your business." Before the Overlord could respond, Deadpool charged forward, leaping through the air with a battle cry that was equal parts heroic and ridiculous. Wanda followed, her magic flaring as she prepared for the final battle. This was it. The fate of every dimension hung in the balance, and there was no room for failure.